Today's video is all about Learning Target 1 of Unit 2. And Learning Target 1 says, I can represent relations as tables, graphs, mappings, and sets of ordered pairs, and determine their domain and range. So these notes are going to go into your notebook on page 18. And we're going to start by talking about what a relation is. So a relation is a set of ordered pairs. And we can represent a relation in 4 different ways. The first one is as ordered pairs. And ordered pairs are what we use to graph points. So that would be like in parentheses, you would see x comma y. The second way we can represent a relation is as a table. And if we have ordered pairs and tables, we can definitely represent our relation as a graph. And the last way is probably the most unfamiliar one. It's called a mapping diagram. So if we look at our first example down here, we want to express the relation that has these 3 ordered pairs in it. So they've given us the relation as a set of ordered pairs. We are going to make a table, a graph, and a mapping diagram. So when we're looking at our ordered pairs, they are x, comma, y. So when I'm filling in my x values for my table, I'm just pulling the x values from the ordered pairs. So my first ordered pair has an x value of -2. Its y value is -1. The second one has an x value of 3 and a y value of 3. The third one has an x value of 4 and a y value of 3. When we represent that relation as a graph, there's nothing new or different here. I'm just going to plot all 3 points on a graph. So the point -2, -1, starting at the origin, I would move 2 to the left and down 1. For the point 3, 3, starting at the origin, I would move 3 right and up 3. And for 4, 3, I start at the origin. This time I go right 4 and up 3. Last is our mapping diagram. When you're making a mapping diagram, you are drawing a picture that says this x value maps to this y value. It just means they go together. So when we make our mapping diagram, it's going to be similar to our table, where I fill in my x values and I fill in my y values, except in a mapping diagram, there are no repeats. So +3 shows up twice in my table, but in my mapping diagram, I only write it once. And that's because once I start drawing in my arrows, I'm not going to need 2 3s in there. So -2 maps to -1. So I draw an arrow that goes from -2 to -1. +3 maps to +3. So I draw an arrow from +3 to +3. 4 also maps to +3. I don't need a whole new 3 in here. I just need an arrow that goes from +4 to +3. So these 4 different representations are all the same relation. They're just showing it in different ways. So when you have relations, we can also talk about their domain and range. The domain of a function is the set of all input values. We usually call those our x values. And the range is the set of all output values. We usually refer to those as our y values. When you're writing out your domain and range, they're written as a list. and they're written in numeric order, which means they go from the smallest number to the largest number. And we write it with set notation. So when you write your list, you're going to put these brackets around it. And when you are writing your domain or range, there are no values repeated. So the same way in our mapping diagram, we didn't put this +3 twice. The same thing happens twice here. So in this example, we have a mapping diagram. It's got x values on the left and y values on the right. My domain for my mapping diagram would be all of these x values. So I would just write out my list with my squiggly brackets with all of my x values from smallest to largest. And then the range is this list of all the y values. They also go in squiggly brackets, and they are also in order from smallest to largest. This next page is a page for you to practice. And this is practice for domain and range. So let's do one of these together. Let's do this table right here. So my domain is all of my x values. So if I look at all of my x values, I don't have any that repeat here, so I can just write these in order from smallest to largest. And in this case, they're already in order from smallest to largest. So I just have to list them. When I write my range, I'm going to be looking at all my y values. And in this case, I do have a repeat. +3 shows up twice. I'm not going to write that twice. I'm only going to write it once. And these aren't in order from smallest to largest. So I'm going to start with my smallest number, that's -21. Next would be +3. And I'm only writing that +3 one time. The next number in my range is +4, and the last number is +7. So follow the directions on the playlist for what you are supposed to do after this video. If you have questions, please feel free to come see me.